Now, overnight, there has been something of a sensational media row. And there it is, the Sun newspaper, grumpy, Trumpy, world exclusive. Ex-Prez storms out on Morgan. What's it all about? Well, I'll tell you. 2 weeks ago today, I was at Mar-a-Lago. I met with President Trump. I was there for a social dinner afterwards. I knew that Piers Morgan, with his new TV show coming up, would make a beeline for Trump. He has, for years, boasted in the British media that he has unique access to the president, that he knows him, that he's a friend, and he can dial his number any time he likes. And I knew that Morgan would play on that. What I also knew was that President Trump would probably, being the busy man that he is, just not be aware of actually what Piers Morgan had been saying about him throughout 2020 and 2021. And so, yes, I did put a dossier on Trump's desk, and here it is, all 3 pages of it. And all it does is tell the truth that Morgan has been saying about his so-called friend, things like he behaves like a mafia mob boss, that he is deluded, boastful, petty, spiteful, an emperor with no clothes. He cannot be trusted with access to the nuclear codes, and on and on and on. He calls him a despicable lunatic. And I thought Trump ought to know the truth. And that is what that was intended to do. Because you know what? I'm sick of people who get close to President Trump and somehow they use that position. They use that position to benefit themselves and to do down Trump himself. So I thought a little bit of truth was the right thing. Trump indeed did hand the dossier back to Piers Morgan and said it would be a souvenir of his treachery. Now, I think all of that was bad enough, but it kind of gets a little bit worse, because here's the point about that Sun front page. Ex-Prez storms out on Morgan. So the impression was given in this newspaper and elsewhere that Trump had lost his rag and stormed out of the interview with Piers Morgan because he simply couldn't take it. Well, I tell you what, there's only one way to describe that news headline. It's very simple. It is fake news. And here's why. Here's the audio of actually what happened.
Happened because I own the club. I'm sure it happened.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for a great interview.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
That was a great interview.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Turn the camera on.
So the interview's over. Morgan says thank you. That was a great interview. Trump says, yeah, it's over. It's done. Trump stands off. He's off to his next appointment, and he says, turn the cameras off. There is no way. There is absolutely no way at all that Trump stormed out of that meeting. That is a completely inaccurate, dishonest representation of what happened. Trump has responded with a statement. He says, Piers Morgan, like the rest of the fake news media, attempted to unlawfully and deceptively edit his long and tedious interview with me. He wanted to make it look like I walked out on the interview when my time limit of 20 minutes went over by an hour. The good news is the interview was taped by us as a means of keeping him honest. The interview was actually very strong, and he goes on to say that he went out of his way to deceptively edit an interview and got caught. That's a big story, isn't it? Well, what are the consequences? What are the consequences of this? Well, there's only one recent example I can think of. It happened in 2007 when the Queen was doing a photo shoot. And the BBC showed pictures that suggested the Queen had walked out of the photo shoot before it ended. It was known as Crown Gate, and it was a huge scandal at the time. The newspapers were full of it. And in the end, the boss of the BBC was forced to resign. I don't know what will happen here. I don't know what will happen here in this case. But what I do know is that there'll be many within Rupert Murdoch's media empire that will not be happy about what's happened at all. Many at Fox News, who over the course of the last few weeks have had Piers Morgan appearing on their shows because he is going to be doing a weekly Fox News broadcast. And there are so many of those presenters and producers within Fox that are big supporters of Donald Trump, and they're going to be simply appalled by this. And why would guests go on with him if they're going to get stitched up like this? Indeed, Caitlyn Jenner, who was due to appear next Wednesday with Morgan, has already decided that that's just not what she wants to do. You'd have thought in the face of all of this, there might have been some sort of apology from Piers Morgan. But no, he's decided to fight Twitter wars with all and sundry, including me. Now, I have been called many things over the years, but this is a new one. Piers Morgan describes me as a dodgy guy. Yeah, that's what he says. He sends this message to Taylor, who is the spokesman for President Trump, and says, yeah, you know, you've relied on some dodgy bloke in London. Well, all I can say, Mr. Morgan, is that if I'm a dodgy guy, the words to describe you I would not be allowed to use before the watershed this evening. So that's the full truth of the story. Yes, I did present a dossier to Donald Trump because I thought he deserved to know the truth. I thought he deserved to know that Morgan wasn't really his friend, just happy to use him as and when it suited. Now, I want your responses to this. Tell me, what do you think about this saga? Let me know. Farage@gbnews.uk.